I'll start recording. And so while you log out and come back in, I will.
Okay.
We're going to talk about something, and you can catch up with that in the recording. We're going to talk about. Well, let's see. I got to think about it. Do I want to do some? Let's work on catching up with the readings. So, let me quick pull that up. All right. So, here's what we're gonna do. Catching up on the readings, we've got several, and actually, we're going to talk about the most current reading right before. But we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, assessing English language learners is one. Assessing adolescent motivation to read is another. Fluency, still waiting after all these years. And what can I say besides sound it out? So, you've got, I've included up here the questions from your homework, which, we've had along the way. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you into groups. And how many people do I have right now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so let's see. Why don't I put you into 3 different groups? Group 1 will do the 2 assessment articles, and what I'd love you to do is bring your answers to those questions, as well as talk about how these might have relevance on lessons. How would motivation and ELL information impact your lesson planning, basically. Fluency, that'll go to group 2. And again, how will this impact your lesson planning? And then what, in addition to the questions there, and what can I say besides sound it out? This one is definitely how can this impact your lesson planning in addition to this, the questions. So you can all access that through our goals page here. Just click catch up, and there you go. So I'm going to stop share because I have to get you in your breakout rooms automatically. All right. So breakout room 1 that is doing the assessment one is Anna, Danielle, and Lydia. Breakout room 2 that's doing fluency is Alyssa, Beth, and Hannah. And breakout room 3 that's doing what should I say besides sound it out is Ash and Tamika. Oh, wait, Tamika's back. That's not right. Okay, let me give you somebody, because Tamika's working. She's not going to be able to. So Hannah, I'm going to move you to breakout room 3. So you're going to be doing the sounding out one. All right. So remember, you're going to address those questions from the homework, as well as how does this impact what we, lessons. How does it impact lessons? All right. So I'm going to let you go. Let's take about 15 minutes.
If I try it now, will that interrupt what they're doing?
Not at all.
Okay, I'm going to try it now.
Let's see. Oh, I can't hear you if you're talking to me.
I'm trying to get to my video from the share.
Okay, you don't have to touch the, no, you don't have to do that. Just show, like, there's, like, each and every, there's an option for showing one thing at a time, but the one at the top left is the only one that will show everything.
So that's what I need to show?
Mm-hmm. You have to do the top left button, whatever that's called, whether it's screen or desktop or whatever it is. All right.
That's what you see?
I see launch meeting.
Okay, so I'll see, I had it open and then I got confused.
That's okay.
So now I'm looking for it again.
This should work because I'm seeing even your, everything.
See, it says the camera is on.
Oh, because the camera's showing you?
I'm not sure.
You need the camera. You need to show the file.
Okay.
Because you're not taking a picture right now. You're showing the video file. So you need
right.
Video file.
I think I was getting nervous, so I couldn't think.
Oh, I hear you. There's nothing like showing yourself or your child, which might as well be yourself, right?
I just was nervous because everybody was waiting for me, and I was like, oh my goodness, I was panicking a little bit.
I get that way too, especially, you don't realize that it's going by really fast, but I've learned this anyway, that, when you're messing with technology, it feels like it's creeping by and that everybody's sitting there going, but
right.
Really, it goes pretty fast.
See, I'm looking for it now. I can't find it.
All right. Now, you videotaped it in what program?
It was through my camera. That's why I kept trying to go through.
All right. Is your camera synced up?
What does that mean?
Well, look over here on Recovery D or your memory card. What is that? Recovery D. What is that?
I don't think anything's in there.
Okay. Videos. Look at videos. There's a video section there.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at.
Oh, captures. Okay. So you downloaded it from your camera.
I just saved it to the camera.
Oh.
I can find it when I'm like, maybe it's right here.
No. Downloads up there? Is it a download?
I don't think it's I don't think it's in a download.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it.
It's here, but it's hard for me to find it like this way. That's why I thought I had it set up.
Is it down on the bottom somehow?
Down here?
Yeah.
It was, and then when I was...
I don't know what those are. What's next to it?
Right here?
Yeah.
Oh, what happened to it?
Oh, you closed it out, I think, by accident.
That was what, that was
the text?
That was part of it. And then pictures. For some reason, I can't find it when I do it this way.
Okay. How does your camera save it? That's really, is it in iTunes? I know iTunes.
No. I can only find.
Close the other apps, and that they're asking you to close our app is what they're doing.
I think so. Should I push OK?
Well, it's very strange. What does your, if you close our app, we won't be able to see it. But
maybe I could bring it back up.
Okay. Close us out and then come back in. That's a great idea. If you can pull it up.
Okay, I'll look for it.
All right.
Sorry again. I'm like,
Not a problem. No, this is a thinker. Gosh.
I gotta figure out how to.
Oh, it looks like Sarah's here. Sarah, if you can hear me, I'm going to put you into one of the rooms so that you can work on catch-up readings.
Yeah.
I'll put you in room 2, which is the one that's reviewing the fluency reading.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry I'm late, by the way.
Oh, no problem.
Family emergency.
It happens. There you go. Now you should be able to go down to the breakout room and find it. Good, good. Hello.
Sorry, my computer died, so I got kicked out of my group.
Oh, hey, then let me put you back. You were in 2, right?
Yep.
All right. There you go.
Can I try it again? I found it in photos.
Excellent. Boy, that took some digging.
But I could only find the one at a time. Do you see it?
Yeah, Sam, I am, Trey.
Yes. You see
I
anything?
do. I see it. I see a whole bunch of them.
Okay.
But yeah, and it's moving and everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's great.
You see just one now?
I do.
Like this one?
Yep. And it's big.
That's the only way I could find it, but I don't know how to get the book.
Well, now go down to the bottom and yeah, there you go. And pull up your book at the same time. Like, you know, you might, you'll need to minimize your screen so they're not full, so it's not full screen.
Okay.
So one's on one part and one's on the other, and that'll work.
So when I pull this up, let's see. See, I go back to that, and then these are the pages of the book right here.
Okay, so you're gonna have to pull those up in a separate window, so a double window, kind of.
Can I do that? It wouldn't let me. It wouldn't let me do that. Like, hello?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
It would only let me pull up the book, the book or the video since it's all in photo.
Oh, and it won't let you pull up 2 photo windows?
I can try now.
Sometimes it'll let you.
So there's one.
Okay, and then move it to the side, and then sometimes it'll just, you can pull up another, and
Okay, I'm gonna.
it looks like you have is that a Dell?
An HP.
Well, it's Windows for sure, and that's what I have. So you should be able to. That's what I do. It's not it. If it's a Mac, I'm clueless, but this I know.
Okay. It's the host. It's not letting me. It says the host has opened breakout rooms. Please wait to be assigned.
It's not letting you?
Well, when I'll try it again. It says something about the host and the breakout room.
Well, how about try it on the window itself? Sometimes on the window itself.
Do you mean going to where I'm going now?
Yeah. Like it's okay, it's just going to take you to there. Sometimes on the window itself, there's a way to like.
You mean right here?
Yeah, where you can have open a second file, like open another window.
I think this is what I did before.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's what I did before. I forgot what I did.
Perfect. So you can pull that one to the side and then bring up the pictures of the Sam I Am, and you are in business.
Oof, my goodness.
I know. I apologize. I mean, I wish we didn't have to do this class online, but boy, it boosts our technology flexibility, doesn't it?
I don't mind at all. It's just when people are watching and waiting, I get a little bit.
And they're
See
busy.
it the right way?
Um,
Hello?
all I see is I see the text right in the middle, and I don't see your son. I see his arm, but it's all kind of blocked by the windows.
Okay. I wonder if I close this out, if this is closed. Oh, there we go.
Are you going to be able to go to the next one and the next one and the next one as he reads?
Let me look at it. Oh, yeah, that's. Yes. Is it moving?
Perfect. Oh, that's perfect.
This was nerve-wracking.
All right. Now just pull it to the side. Oh, and there he is again. So, pull it so that well, when you get to there, pull it up over so we can see his beautiful face.
Okay, thank you so much for your patience.
Oh, my pleasure. Oh, believe me, you should have seen me the first time I had to do this stuff. It wasn't pretty. And I definitely did it in front of, like I think I have it, and then I get to right in front of people and I stumble my way through. But and I had for the first, I think, 2 months
Mhm.
when I've taught on Zoom, I had one of the tech people in the class with me. Just they just were on the side, and if I said help, they came.
Oh, okay.
It was bad, but
So you understand.
so I have patience because I have understanding. I've been there.
No, I'm like, you got grace under fire, huh?
Well, you seem pretty good. You kept your head. You were pretty good. So, Daniel Simon is asking for help. I'm gonna go help her. So hold on.
I'm gonna say right.
Hello.
Hey. Hey. So we have a question. Oh, go ahead. No, whatever. So we just realized that we were looking at two different articles.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead real quick.
So the article on Canvas that says Pritchard, Albright, Delaney, Walker, Mogg, and it's titled Assessing Adolescents' Motivation to Read.
Yes.
Like this, because I printed it X amount weeks ago, right?
Adolescents motivation to read, and they both say the same thing.
But if you click on the one on Canvas, it's a different article.
What did I do? Now that's me this term and everything. Oh my gosh. Well, just do that one. So you don't have, what did I do? Well, you don't have the ELL one.
We have it. We do. Yes. Were we supposed to do both of them?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
If you
ELL and motivation to read?
Yeah, both of the assessment ones. You got both of them.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we talked about the ELL one, but just that second one, we were like, we're looking at two different articles here.
Oh my goodness. I am so sorry. So I obviously, you know what I found out is that Zoom is very peculiar when you save two things at once. Like if you save an article and you put it in files at the same time, it'll mess it up royally. So I'm learning. I have to go back and I have to fix half of the stuff I've done because I've made all sorts of a mess. So sorry about that, and I'll let you get talking. And don't.
How much longer do we have approximately?
Let's say about 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your problem solving. All right, they have asked. They found out that I had 2 articles up there as one for I don't know even how I've done this, but anyway, so they figured it out. They've asked for 5 more minutes, and then and Aaron's here too. So let me. So Tamika, no, we're not going to change a thing. We're just going to leave it right here. Yeah. That's what we're going to do. I was going to say, you could go to your, no, let's just stay right here. I don't want to tempt fate. Even though I think you've got it completely. Partly, I looked at your face when I said, so would you like to, and you're like, no. We're good. Okay. So, 5 minutes.
It's 6:08.
Oh, it's 6:08. I've got Mickey Mouse on my watch right now. All right. So take a breather for 5 minutes and we'll be right back.
How fast they're going if they're doing the majority of silent reading, you know?
Yeah, so that we have to specifically assess them orally reading to try to get some equivalency.
Yeah. Because you could be like, where did you stop? And then you could count and time it, but I don't really think that would be like accurate.
So guys, I just wanted to let you know that group 1 had 2 articles to do and they had a little confusion about, well, something that I did. So they ended up having 2 articles for when they, anyway, I don't know. They wanted to make, there were some issues with technology. Let's just put it that way. And they've asked for a few more minutes. So in a few more minutes, I'll be calling you back. But enjoy your discussion until then.
Did she like forget about us?
Hello. No, I didn't.
Perfect timing.
No, I was just coming in to let you know. Group 1 had some technical issues with one of their articles, and we just got it figured out. So they asked for 5 more minutes to get it ship shape. So I'm coming around telling you it's going to be a few more minutes.
Okay.
And then I'm going to call you back. I've got it on Mickey Mouse here, so we're good. All right. And you're welcome to come back. Erin Peterson's in there. Tamika's in there, and Tamika's got it all figured out. And we're not touching a thing. We're just going to leave it just like it is. When we go back, we're actually going to do her video so that we don't have to worry about the tech and that she can just kind of relax for the rest of the day. I think she's stressed enough. So, a couple minutes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, they should all be coming back in about 50 seconds.
We can't hear you. Sorry.
I'm doing that a lot today. Thank you. Welcome back. For those of you who are in the groups, I'm going to beg your patience for a little bit because Tamika and I have the stuff up and it's perfect and we're not going to mess with it. So we'll let Tamika go so that she can relax for the rest of the class. And then we'll return after that and have and have a kind of a share out about what you guys talked about. So if you would take just a few seconds here and write down what you were talking about, what you want to share from your discussions of the readings. And then after that, I will let Tamika take it over. All right, I'm gonna let Tamika take it over. Go for it. Let's see what Trey has to offer. Oh, we can't hear it, so you have to turn on your sound for us to hear your sound, Tamika.
Now?
Could you start it over? Thanks. We still can't hear it. Can you hear it? Check on your sound on Zoom. There's that little arrow. See what it's. I heard that.
Can you hear it?
That.
Perfect. All right. Let's start over.
Okay.
Not like Jim. Okay.
Here. I want you to read that to me.
I can show them it like this. Green eggs and ham. Here I am. Here I am. Here I am. Let's do it again, Mom.
That.
That's I am. That's who I am. Wait. That's Sam I am. That's Sam I am. I do that too. Not like that Sam I am. Do you like green eggs and ham? I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like Sam I am. I do not like green eggs and ham. Would you like it there? Oh, I don't know it. Here or there? Here. What's that word again?
To look at it.
What or all? But it. But I don't know.
Just try to figure it out.
It's it. I not like him. I don't know all these. You said you're gonna help me.
Here or there.
Here or there. But you already said I
Would
not like him. Skip. I do not like the eggs and ham. What's that word again?
read on your own.
Oh, do not like them. Oh, I know it now. Would you like them in a house? A house? Would you like them with a mouse? I do not like him in a house. I do not like him with a mouse. I do not like him. Skip, I don't know where I'm at. Where am I?
Right
Like him. Man, Skippy, I want to skip.
You're right here. I do not like them.
Anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not. Sorry. Would you put in a box will
I'm thinking that's about 100 words. What do you guys think? We can stop it right there. I think because I can kind of tell he's getting tired already. He's working hard. They say that kids get tired after 100 words, so it makes sense. All right. And I just have a couple questions.
He read a lot more.
A box, not.
He read a lot more after that. And he was more
I
total.
got confused a little bit. We may want to start it over again a little bit, but what when he was going about the here and there stuff, I was thinking he was trying to read what the next page, but he was just going over the stuff that he'd already read, right? The here and there just stumped him. Is that the way it is? He got everything else basically except for the here and there, here or there.
Yes, the here. Yes, he was struggling with the here and there.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So, does anybody want to see it again?
Oh my goodness.
All right. Looks like they're all right. All right. Take a minute to kind of MSNV it and get your notes in order, and then we'll walk it through. He's a cutie. He reminds me of my son, actually. See the way he keeps looking at you? Mine too. All right, everybody, what did you notice? Meaning and structure and visual wise, did you notice any evidence of him using any of it? Lydia?
Well, even just the way he like kind of looks at mom like and then he was like, is that right? Kind of that like reassurance. I think, he's using probably mostly visual is my guess, because it's kind of based on that. And then like the wood at one point towards the middle, he like wasn't sure, and she was like, what are you gonna do? And then he's like, what like he's using, I think, the visual to hopefully figure it out, but he wanted to like skip certain words that were hard, which was just like interesting, to me, that can I skip, that he knew whether he knew it or not. So that was kind of interesting to me also.
It seems like he did some rereading, which says that he's using structure, like maybe he felt like something didn't sound right or something in his reading, so he's trying to go back and fix it, or he realized that maybe like the way that he read it the first time didn't have the right like pronunciation or the right sound to it, so he went back and reread, so he's trying to use structure. It also had a rhyme scheme, so he could have been using the rhyme scheme, which is structure, to help him read as well.
That's what I was going to say. I think he definitely noticed the structure of the rhyme because he was able to read wood the next time around without having to sound it out. So I think he was using the structure then and then just remembering his visual of like, okay, it's repeating itself.
I said structure for like the mistakes that he did make, they still made sense. Like he said green eggs and ham instead of them, and he said put instead of eat, and I think like it sounded like it still made sense in the sentence. And then I think the them and them for it still made sense in the sentence.
You got them nicely lined up there. Go ahead.
I do just have a question about like students who skip words in running records or don't make an attempt. Like usually if they don't make an attempt, I'll give them the word. But if that's the case, is there a way that you should analyze that error?
Well,
like if they don't make an attempt, or is that just?
You try not to give them the word, because that allows them the opportunity to go back and fix it. And actually, Ash, was it you who was telling me that you had you had a student? I know it was somebody from last night, but or from Monday, that had a student, or is it the guy that sits next to you that had a student that went all the way back? It was the guy that sits next to you.
Yeah. Wait, which instance are you talking about?
Where he had a student that got all the way through the book or halfway through the book, mispronounced.
Oh, that was me. Yeah. Yeah.
And then she, right?
Yeah. And then she went back and corrected everything and reread the whole thing on her own.
Right. And she's an older reader too.
Mm-hmm.
So, now that's a case where she'd actually given a guess, but you just try not to give them any of the answers unless they're at total meltdown stage, where you're just trying to keep them going. He did have kind of a skipping behavior too, where he's like, can I skip it? I just don't want to, I don't know what to do here, and he knew it was wrong.
I was wondering if that skipping behavior fit in with any of the MSV, because usually when students do that, I never really know quite how to analyze that, or if it just.
It's not a reading strategy. He's not using a cue to do that, or actually in this case, he was using visual and not knowing what to do from that. And, he wasn't really going back and rereading for it or trying to figure out the structure or the meaning. It was a lot of visual, it seemed, that made him skip it. So we have that kind of data in some of those cases, and not all, but some. But that trying to get it right, and that's a behavior more than a cueing system. And some of his reading behaviors around it are a little like my son, who, kind of on the perfectionist thing, I want to get it right. And as they're reading, not as much of a focus on meaning and structure, really trying to get that word right. And then a lot of appealing, partially because he wants to get it right. That focus on getting it right. Every word he's looking up, I'm okay, right? He's not going back and checking on his own, that's what you and I are both going to work on.
That makes sense. Thank you.
But I was marking down those P's, those not P's, appeals, where you go through and because he does have what's called an appeal behavior, it's where he's appealing for, could you tell me it, or is that right? And so we're going to want to look for that to fade away over time as he gets more confident with strategies, as he starts to know how to check it himself and things like that.
When I did assess him, he really relies a lot on visual, and he's a real visual cues, and doesn't really look at structure second, and then he doesn't really look at meaning directly. So you guys are spot on with what you're saying. If we would have listened a little more, but I know we don't have time. He was decoding some words kind of, but it was the same pattern. He figured out what eat was on his own.
Oh, good for him.
Again, the rhyming part of it. So
perfect.
You guys were right about the visual part.
Using a little structure too, he's really getting that repeated structure, using the rhyming. That's fantastic. All right, so she's got, I think, is there anything else anybody noticed? I mean, he does work on things. He's not afraid to put in some work. He'll stay there until he's allowed to go on. And that's a good piece because we'll give him stuff to do. Actually, today will probably help. Any other noticings? Pretty good. All right. So, is he behind or struggling? Has he been has a teacher or anybody, or just you?
Kind of red flagged as being behind, and he is in a reading group, and that's why I'm tutoring him also. But he's a pretty fast learner, so
he's not that far behind. He's 6. He's fine. Sometimes it depends on the school, the district. You know, he's fine. I'll say. He's fairly average, where he's supposed to be, and he's about ready to sky. So we'll work on that as well. So, all righty. So, he's been talked about as a reading group or anything. Does he have any awareness of this? That he's been flagged or anything?
I think he knows that at about this age he should be reading. So he's been really persistent about wanting to read and practice and just really motivated. So I don't know if he knows he's in a special reading group at school, but he definitely knows that he should be starting to read right now.
And he is. He's reading.
Mm-hmm.
He's reading. He can pat himself on the back. He's doing a good job.
Thank you.
Oh, sure. Well, okay, wonderful. And that's one of those things that comes up a lot. Like, depending on the context that that the student is in, they'll feel like they're fantastic, or they'll feel like they're struggling. You know, and that can be, you know, it can be just the context of the school that they have these expectations that may not be appropriate for a 6-year-old at 6. You know, he's just learning. And I think the key with that is that we don't want him to feel like he's not succeeding. He is. He's doing great. He's doing just what he should be at his age. His brain is still kind of putting those things together. There's no proof, or, you know, the brain scientists say that the linkages aren't all there for everybody until 7. And as long as we can keep them from being feeling bad about not reading before they're 7, then he'll be all right. The danger comes in when when students get a learned failure, when they start thinking, oh, I can't do this, or start reading only on phonics, you know, without thinking, you know, trying to get it right, but not, you know, because sometimes people say, oh, well, you're behind, let's phonics you, but they don't also meaning you, you know? So we want to make sure that he uses both, because he can use both. He's using both here and there. But we want to, I think, probably the most important thing for him is really focusing, you know, really, or I would say at home, really focus on that meaning piece. Alrighty. It is 6:38 and I have not given you a break yet. So why don't I give you a 10-minute break? Some of you might have taken breaks. Others of you I know haven't and could use a break. So let's give the full 10-minute break. We will come back and we will talk about groups. And then, so, you know, I will see you, in 10 minutes at 10 till. Welcome, welcome. So let's go to the group with 2 articles. We'll start with you, if that's okay. So what did you guys come up with on those assessment articles? What was your discussion?
Well, we kind of started by talking about the ELL article. With that being said, it talked a lot about how most assessments are usually in English and not in that child's native language. It did suggest giving it in the child's native language. We had discussed like having ELL students in the past. We did not, like, in all honesty, do that. So this article kind of was like, oh, maybe I should have done things a lot differently.
Yeah, there are like, I know in just in MPS, there's like 125 different languages, and it's impossible to have every, the ability to do every one of those languages. It's just, a capacity thing.
So it was suggesting a lot about like alternative assessments, such as, anecdotal records, rating scales, checklists, journals, conferring, questionnaires, portfolios, self-assessments, performance tasks as options to the traditional assessments. Overall, I think the big takeaway was like modify assessments whenever possible in any capability that you can. Danielle and I had discussed how we had it. We realized like how many mistakes we had made with students in the past. And we kind of were just like, oh.
Yeah, I have 4 ELL students right now. And I guess I've talked about, their issues maybe and things like that. But I guess I never thought that I should be giving them different assessments than maybe the rest of the class. And maybe it's because they seem so proficient in English that I don't think it's hurting them, but in some ways it probably is. So we still need to be mindful of that.
And especially just keep that in mind, I guess, with all individuals, yes, especially at the older age groups, but I can only imagine even at the younger age groups, how difficult that is. So that was kind of our big takeaway on that article.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. And you can use running records, even if you don't know the child's, strongest language, because that's the one you should be using, whether it's English or there are other languages. But even if you don't, you can use the reading record to figure out a little bit, if you can find out a little bit about their language, or maybe you do know quite a bit about their language. I think a lot of us know a little bit about Spanish. We can see some Spanish, trends that go through, and you can differentiate the errors made because they're using Spanish structures, to educate their guesses, maybe the endings, maybe even the pronunciations, and you can differentiate that from the reading strategies, and that alone can give you a clearer picture of what a student's doing, even if it's not perfect. But it might keep you from, most assessments will flag both, most reading assessments to flag students with reading disabilities will, ELLs pop for those. They'll pop up in those all over the place. And running records is one of the few places where we can make that differentiation. So, be mindful of that.
The next article was kind of just about it was called Assessing Adolescents' Motivation to Read. And it was really just about getting kids to want to read, especially at the middle school level. That becomes very difficult. They show up and they're like, meh, I don't like reading. I don't like that book or that book. And no matter how many you give them, they're just saying no. So it was kind of saying model your love of reading, give them choice. with reading books as well as like projects, you know, give them varied levels. It was honestly though, we were kind of discussing how it had these like ideas. It said use engaging activities such as book clubs. But we were book clubs are great for some kids and other kids still hate book clubs. So it's in all honesty, we kind of were discussing how yes, you want to use engaging activities, but engaging is different to every single kid. And keeping that kind of in mind, because we felt like it was giving ideas, but yet also not always giving practical answers, in all honesty. So give choice whenever possible, vary their levels, show them you love reading, and use engaging activities, whatever exactly that means. Because to me, they said the example of book clubs, but book clubs, some kids still hate book clubs. So
absolutely
makes it hard. A couple other things when it comes to assessment, it said, is that you're supposed to lean more towards like their performance assessments where they can kind of choose what they are doing. You know, so whether it's you give them the content that they need to display to you and they get to choose how they do that. And the other one was portfolio assessments, which I have not really like dabbled with in middle school at all. And I think it would be interesting. But it's mostly so they look at their own personal progress and they can kind of gauge it in that way. So that was another big thing I said.
And give them a little control for how.
Yeah. Yep. And that was also mentioned in the ELL article, was like getting them to self-assess themselves and how that's a really big part of it. And I guess I didn't think of how that might be more difficult for ELL students than maybe a regular student. So I don't know. It's interesting. All right.
And in both cases, you're talking about giving them kind of a little control over how people look at them.
Yeah.
You know, how they present themselves essentially. And with the choices and stuff. I think we'd all appreciate that, right? If I was going to be held up about my teaching, I'd want to be able to talk about, you know, kind of pick the way I'm presented. I wouldn't want to say, yeah, let's talk about the fact that you guys turned in a bunch of assessments to me last week and I haven't graded them yet. That's not the part I would want to talk about. I'd want to talk about other things. Sorry about that, by the way. I will get to them. This week is just crazy. So, great. Thank you for that. Group 2, what did you have? Where are you? You had fluency.
So yeah, we had the fluency article, and we talked about the point of the article is that the definition that we typically use of fluency and the way that we assess it in schools tends to be just speed and accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't factor comprehension into that. If you're not factoring comprehension in, it's really not a very useful thing to assess. It doesn't really tell you anything. The article actually reminded me of the student that I'm tutoring right now, who is an excellent decoder. She reads out loud. She sounds beautiful. She gets almost all of the words right. She reads quickly. She uses the correct intonation. Ask her a question about what she read. She doesn't know any of it. So it's really important to factor in more than just the speed and accuracy. And yet that's pretty much all we do. A few years ago, I worked in a Title I reading program with 5th and 6th grade students. The only fluency assessment that we used was DIBELS. We did it twice a year to the entire student body, and then monthly for the students we needed to progress monitor. And they learned really quickly that the faster they went, the faster they were going to get out of that program, because we never ever looked at whether they understood what they were reading. We also talked a lot. It was kind of interesting because the three of us all teach at very different levels. Alyssa's at kindergarten, Sarah has 3rd graders, and I work mostly with middle school students. And so I guess our understanding of how important it is or why it's important was really different for each of us. You know, Alyssa's just trying to get them to be able to read the words individually. So reading, you know, for her, measuring fluency didn't seem relevant. For me, at the point that they're in middle school, they're not learning to read, they're reading to learn. So they need to be reading fluently and well, or they're going to fall behind in everything. So that was just, I guess, an interesting part of our conversation, the different way that we perceive it at different grade levels.
It's the truth. And Alyssa should not be timing you should not be timing your kids.
No, I know they were talking about like 52 words per minute or what. I wouldn't even know the correct number. And I was like, our books maybe have like 20 words and it's probably like 3 minutes for 20 words. Yeah. So yeah, no. And I only have a level A Ian's Fontes and Pinnell benchmark in front of me. And I know some of them do have like a fluency key, but this one doesn't. And I couldn't remember if like the fluency key only comes in like level C and above or what it was, because it's actually not on this one. The place for the score is on here, but it doesn't have what would be like a 1, 2, and a 3. I could just be like mixing that up with something else. But I know what we're told, at least by our reading specialist, is if they don't pass the comprehension and the fluency, it's not even, the comprehension and the fluency, it's not even really relevant to grade because, it was the accuracy was so low.
Absolutely.
Plus, I touched upon just in like 3rd grade, I feel like I'm at that pivotal, very much pivotal year. And for me, fluency, it's kind of a hard topic for me because sometimes I feel like the main reason we're pushing fluency is so that they can pass a timed STAR test. Where it's like, what are we really gauging as a definition of a reader? Because if we took the time component out of STAR testing, I'm pretty sure a lot of my kids would do a lot better if they had longer than 1 minute and 30 seconds to read a paragraph and a half and answer questions. But they don't. So then we have to like push them to keep reading quicker so that they can answer these timed tests that they're given. Where I feel like in 3rd grade, it would be more beneficial to just get them to like to read and enjoy reading and comprehend their reading versus trying to get them to speed up the reading. But I do see the importance with how Beth pointed out, the quantity of reading that they're given in older grades. They have to at some point be pushed with their fluency in order to read the quantity of stuff that they're given in the time. Like if you have to read 2 pages this night for homework, that should not take you all night to do.
And really, ideally, if you are fluent, you've probably got enough sight words and things that you're not having to labor over the actual act of reading and are able to focus ideally you're able to focus on comprehension. That, if you've got good fluency, you'll be able to read quickly and comprehend and do all that wonderful stuff. But there's a lot that could trip you up. And fluency itself isn't like a silver bullet, there's a lot of pieces to it, obviously, like you have all been saying. So, if somebody's not reading fluently, it's not just because they're not reading fluently. It's probably because they need other pieces, right? They might need more sight words. They might need more fix 'em up strategies. They might need really to be paying it, to be able to focus on the meaning part too. It really, you'd have to look at the student and figure out why. The way you all are doing, It's an important thing, but it's a complicated thing. Nice. Well, and gosh, I have to say, hearing you guys talk, well, Beth especially, how just the assessment itself is creating kind of this focus on speed, when that's kind of counterproductive if you want to focus on comprehension, if you want somebody to be focusing on comprehension. So it's fascinating, kind of creating word collars where there maybe weren't those beforehand. We'll be talking a little bit about that in the Dibble stuff coming up too. So it's interesting. All righty. Thank you all. why don't we go on to the third group, which is 1, 2, 3. The third one. Oh boy. Sounding out. What did that say? What can I say besides sound it out?
Well, me and Hannah were talking, and she was telling me some of the strategies that she uses with her second graders. Since I don't do too much sounding out with my eighth graders, I do a lot more focus on comprehension. She was talking about how she has them, instead of just like say sound it out, like chunking the word, which I like to do as well. Like just looking at the word, see what other words you can find in it, and then like putting it together.
A strategy that I think my students favor a lot is looking for a word inside of a word. A lot of times you can find like snap words like am or an or it within a longer word. So that's something that my students use, but also prompting them not only to look if the word looks right, because there are some words that you can't sound out or you don't know the chunks to. So cueing them to maybe skip the word and come back and think what would make sense there. Let's check the picture and think about what's going on, what would make sense. And then when we do have an attempt at a word, going back and rereading the sentence with our attempts to making sure it sounds right too, because then it really cues them into all of the cues, meaning visual and structure. And I mean, my class has an anchor chart that separates all of the strategies that we could use to figure out or to make an attempt by meaning, to make an attempt using structure, and to make an attempt using visual cues. So yeah, I usually don't just favor the sounded out or a visual cue. Trying to cue all of, just them to use all of them is, I think, important. So.
How do the rest of you feel about that? Do you have, I hear a little bit of a cold there, Hannah. Is that the case? Oh, I'm sorry. Tis the season, I suppose. So what about the rest of you? What about sounding it out? Do you have, how does that interact with your day? Lydia?
I mean, similar to Ash, like my kids rarely do in the middle school. Once in a blue moon, if it's like a really big word, they'll kind of chunk it more. But realistically, you need to be fluent in order to comprehend it. So it goes hand in hand. The kids who aren't very fluent definitely struggle with comprehension and have other kind of like reading issues. So no, I definitely think they go hand in hand, and especially at the upper grades, it's really difficult when they're not very fluent.
I can add that at the elementary level, this is like a prompt sounded out is something that parents use when they read. So at the beginning of the year, I always do send home a resource or post pictures of the cues that I use or the prompts that I use rather than just sound it out, because it's one of those things that I don't know if that's how parents were prompted or that's how maybe they learned to read. So I always have to find myself giving parents other prompts rather than sound it out, because I think that's just a go-to one. So we know it in the classroom, but they don't always know it at home.
Yeah. Well, we don't always know it in classroom either. I mean, I've certainly, run into teachers who really didn't have reading boiled down to its nitty gritty for whatever reason. And, but yeah, sound it out is the most, like when you think, oh, somebody is having trouble with reading, that's the go-to prompt, right? Well, then sound it out. But often when you're the kid on the other end, that's stressful. Sarah?
Well, I was going to say too, especially when you reach when you get approached with all of the grammar rules and like exceptions in the English language we're taught, then it's almost impossible to sound it out. And I actually ran into that when I did my lesson with Sky, my little girl that I tutored. We read a story, and then I did a kind of write to learn using Elkonin boxes. And she wanted to write a sentence that said, I am 8 years old. Well, then she got tripped up on 8. How on earth do you use 8 in an Elkonin box?
You don't.
Use 8 in an Elkonin box. Like, there's no way. There's no way. It is every like exception to you cannot sound it out.
IGH is
And the EI to make the A sound, but I was like, this is one of those tricky words that we're just gonna need to learn.
yeah, exactly. It's just too crazy. No, I know it. And you know, if we were to give them all, I mean, it would stress them out. You know, we really need flexibility more than all of that. But even, who was going to say?
That's okay. On reverse, I do use the prompt sound it out quite a bit during writing, and I'm always looking for different prompts to use during writing instead of sound it out, stretch it out. So I think there's different cues that you need for reading and writing as well.
Absolutely. They're kind of different. They're very related, but they can certainly be distinct. You're probably right. Sounding out probably is more often used there. Oh, sorry, something popped up. But yeah, when a kid is sitting there looking at a long word that they have to sound out, and it can't, first of all, you can't sound out, you can't keep more than 5, they say, sounds in your head at one time in sequence. It's just too much. So you got to figure out something else for those big words. But sounding out in itself can be intimidating for a kid that is having trouble doing it. So just sounding it out, you might say, well, what's it start with? You kind of get them going. Sometimes running starts and things like that. Or even check the endings. I know a lot of our students are having trouble with endings, and encouraging flexibility with the vowels is never a bad thing. But we'll be talking a lot about phonics, but in the future. So are there any other comments about what to say besides sound it out? We'll be coming back to this plenty in the future. All righty. Okay. Now, we're going to save Pardo's comprehension one, and I'm going to do a little dog and pony show here. And I have everything. Whoa. Oh, hey, new initiatives being rolled out at a new literacy initiative is being rolled out tomorrow. So I'll report back. All right. Where am I? So this we will keep till next time. And we'll go back here. All right. I'd like to talk a little bit about the roaming the known reading part before you go, so that you feel more confident with your roaming the known lessons. So let's talk roaming the known. Just a couple of theory reminds that we're focusing on the cues, of course, that reading is a guess check system. We've talked about that already today, and pay attention to what cues the kids are using. This is especially important in roaming the known because it's all about what they're using, right? So this education, Running Records gives us the pieces that we're going to need to praise our student. And readers should self-monitor and self-correct. But if they don't, if they do, you want to praise that basically. And that's some of what we're going to be coaching. The questioning funnel, that's what that should say. I would encourage you, as your student is figuring anything out, to use this kind of questioning funnel. So you start with the big open questions at the top there. So what should you do? What do you want to, when a student runs into trouble? And then you can keep probing, like, well, what are you looking at? And you're slowly pulling that funnel tighter and tighter. So you're always trying to give the student as much room as they need to, as independently as possible, come up with the answer. Because every time they do it, you can praise them. So then you get to a kind of a closed question where you have to say, well, why don't you read it again, or whatever is the appropriate strategy to use there, or and if they can't do that, then you're like, well, could it be this? And then they could verify. But you want to stay away from telling as much as possible. You want them to be able to get it so that you can praise them. But then the other piece is, after you've given the answer, you want to make sure that you check and that they approve of that answer, that they're monitoring again for MSMV. Like, could it be this? And then they have to check, well, yes, it could be. Or you could give them a false answer, and like, no, so that the student has to say, no, it can't be that. So you can help them either way. You don't want to always be giving the right answer. You want the kids to have to problem solve and to have to check it all the time. They've got it. They can't just take it from you. All right. Oh, and strategy sheets. Now, Hannah has alluded to this already, but I'm going to show you a couple. Let's see, that I have, and they're not maybe current or fantastic, but they're samples, and there are plenty of them. All you have to do is Google it, and you can get these stretchy snakes. That's the way to stretch the word, right? To stretch it out. The trying lion, try it again. The helpful kangaroo, ask for help. The chunky monkey, chunk the word. The lips, the fish, get your lips ready to make the first sound or the end sound. Skippy the frog, skip it. But you have to skip it and then hop back to read it. Hopping back is really important. Eagle eye, look at the pictures for clues. Spinner the spider, make connections. Connect to what you already know. Text to text, text to self, text to world, activate your background knowledge. Questioning owl, ask questions as you read, before, during, and after. What, when, where, why. Ask questions. Look for answers. Rocky raccoon, visualize. I mean, these, you can get the point here. These are all strategies, and the strategies are within the cues. So these are all asking the students to look at meaning, structure, or visual. Sometimes a few of them at the same time. Certainly Digger the dog is looking for meaning. But finding it, sometimes you have to use structure and visual. And visualizing is certainly a meaning, a comprehension strategy. Questioning, a comprehension strategy. Making comprehension strategy. But Skippy the frog, it could be comprehension, and it could be all three, because that's kind of a monitoring strategy. So getting your lips ready, definitely visual, and so on and so forth. Who's under Diggy? Iggy the inferring iguana, and Jabber the reteller, and Fix Up Bear, monitor and fix up. So you can see that these are just scaffolds, and the important thing with these kind of as Hannah was calling them, anchor charts, are to give you a common language. You can talk about strategies you can use, and there are endless supplies of these. So you know, get ones that suit your purposes. Alyssa may not want to be talking so much about some of these. These are way above the kinds of things that her students should be doing. Although many of them are relevant. Visualizing is certainly something her students can do. Imagine, what does it look like? See it in your head. Those. Finding the pieces that you can use are helpful. And don't forget our comprehension strategies. Did we talk about these, I think, already? during the writing one, where these are done more in an older student's way of talking. Here's the questions. Predicting and inferring, setting a purpose, retelling, asking questions, et cetera, et cetera. So these are questions that you can ask or that kids can ask themselves that could be your anchor chart. I like this one for beginning readers. I don't like the pictures, I will be frank. I wish I could get some different pictures, but I like the idea of the hand being your anchor chart because you have it with you all the time. No matter if you're in the car, at home, it's always there. And like the thumb is look for picture clues. Get your mouth ready to say the first part is the pointer finger. The naughty finger is look at the word parts for letter patterns. So, chunk it basically. The ring finger is read it again. And then read on is the pinky. And there, right in the palm, sometimes I've seen them put a stop sign in the palm saying stop. Did it look right, sound right, make sense? Is there in the palm kind of as a monitoring clue. And they've got a slightly different version with a dog in the tree, but the idea is the same here. Does it look right, sound right, or make sense? So for some of the younger students, that may be sufficient for what they need. I just did that one. I like this one's pictures better, but I don't like the fact that it says good readers. That binary of good and bad readers makes the students feel like they're the bad readers if they don't do all this stuff. But looking at the pictures, Skip, I like the pictures, like the look in the eyes, that for a non-reader, I think they'd understand even what that look means with the eyes. Skipping a word here at skip, read again. Getting your mouth ready. It's got nice shiny teeth. Rereading and listen. Does it sound right? That's a monitoring strategy again. I like chunk it for Wisconsin because it's cheese. At least in this version, there's lots of different chunk it, but I hate this one. Meaning. Think about the meaning of the story. It doesn't get me anywhere. Right? And they don't look like they're going to help me get anywhere. So, I mean, you're welcome to go through these ones or any of the ones online if you need them, or you can just make your own. It's not unheard of. And the great part about strategy sheets, like Hannah was saying, she's got an anchor chart in her room, and so when the students don't know what to do, they've looked at each and piece of that so they can look up there and think of, okay, what strategy might I use? What might help me here? That's fantastic. You can have ones at the students' desk, or Hannah mentioned sending them home and helping the parents with their own anchor strategies. So I've seen bookmarks on those as well. So there's, like I said, endless amounts, but you get the one that fits your needs, fits your, maybe it's dictated by your school or district, but that you can use to support. And much of what you're doing is creating a system of scaffolding that is not you. So once your student gets comfortable and not only is introduced to the strategy, but has used the strategy, been caught using the strategy, praised for using the strategy, knows what that strategy feels like, feels comfortable with that strategy, then you can start to wean them off of you coaching that strategy, and they can start using it on their own when they're problem solving. So they might even, I used to have one that I'd give them and that they would check off with a dry erase marker, and and I just had it in a little plastic thing, and they could check them off when they did them and wipe it clean, and very quickly they would become what's called a strategic reader, meaning that they got better at knowing which of the strategies to choose in which instance. So they chose carefully, and they knew what the impact was and when they should use different ones. So that became something good about them having, me kind of pushing that independence off on them, because they took control. They became in control of their strategies, and they decided when to use them. All right, let's go back to, not this, this. Okay. Are there any questions about strategy sheets? They're pretty self-explanatory, probably. All right. And a couple quick things here. Strategy talk. Let's get this nice and big and blue here. What are these are the kinds of things you might want to include in your lessons. So if you you might include make little notes of things you want to say to your student, and hope you find an opportunity to use those, because it's all dependent on the student. So the strategy talk should involve what the students are doing well in roaming. You can say things like, I like the way you do this. Really point it out and name it. And now maybe let's try this, and you can support them to kind of stretch by praising what they're using, and they can go on. You will want to name the strategies they're using, then cues that they're using, so that you have that. It makes them real to the student, and it gives them confidence that they can use it again once they've used it once. So here's the strategy sheets. You could just pick one or two if you're focusing on those one or two that day, and then focus on what your student needs, and hopefully they'll get more and more independent with that. And then this is just a helpful hint. In any kind of strategy talk, comments work better than questions. Questioning in a school setting always comes off as a quiz. It's a quizzing behavior. And if you can avoid that, you'll probably reduce the amount of stress your student feels. It's just a helpful hint. And then roaming the known lesson structure. So let's get back with the nitty gritty. In roaming the known, you're going to warm up with, it says begin warm up with texts. So you're going to choose any texts that are easy for the student, and they're going to read them hopefully fast and fluent, and with maybe some flair, and make them, and the idea here, really that warm-up section is about fluency and about meaning. So really getting into acting it out, really getting into the meaning and presenting the meaning as you read. Just like, teachers have to do all the time, reading out loud to their students. The students are going to focus on that in the warm-up section. In the new reading section, you'll introduce a text. You can begin with a picture walk. Initially, that's really reviewing the pictures, but as you get more complicated texts, there are headers and graphs and anything, headings as well, anything that can give you information about what's coming, what you're going to read, so that they can get their mind set, and you can start discussing any background knowledge. Do you know anything about these kind of things? And you can get that kind of in that front brain. Discuss some predictions about what you think is coming, and don't make them all about being right. I mean, you can say, maybe it's something, and then be wrong about it, to really drive it home that the guesses only have to be reasonable. They don't have to be correct in the end. They just have to be based on the data that you have, essentially. And then also, then the student and the teacher read the book in Roaming the Known. You want it to be fun in Roaming the Known, but you want the student to read as much as possible. If you have to do a lot of back and forth to make it more fun, that's just fine. You want to upend that kind of quizzing structure. You want to be making this together. You can create books together. You can read those texts as well, and play. You can really get creative here. This is just the basics. You really making it fun is an important part of roaming the known. So, but what you should be doing during the reading, absolutely, is identifying and naming the strategies or the cues the student is using, praising reading and risk-taking, especially when they get something wrong, because you want them to know that that their risk is appreciated and what they should be doing, and then informally discuss what's happening. And again, not questioning, but comments like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't expect that. Oops." Or what is happening? I don't know. Everything just, honest reactions to what you're hearing. And then you can discuss the text and your predictions after the reading, like, well, I thought it was going to go this way. It went that way. Well, what do you know? That I like a book that fools me, or something. And then reread if you can. And this is for all levels. That's often when strategies really sink in, or when they get to really practice and show them off. And I will just say this because I know that this happens a lot, but don't, and I know in the assessment, this is, part of the assessment, but don't read the book out loud first. Let that exploration in roaming the known be together. All righty. Does that make sense? It's all good?
So the first lesson is due next week, right?
I messed up and didn't put it on your homework last week. So
okay, yeah, just checking.
That was my oversight. I didn't recognize it. I didn't catch it till today when I was putting the homework together. I'm like, wait a minute. Yes. So yeah, it's gonna all get kind of shoved back. Yes, Lydia.
If we did it and submitted it, because I, for whatever reason, thought I was supposed to, is that okay too?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you. And you've got 2 weeks before the next one. No, if you want to stay on track, that's fine, because we're going to end up with like a double up at the end if we, All righty. So, okay. So let's look at the homework. Since we're talking about it. That's not the homework. There we go. All right. For class 10. Oh my gosh, we're getting on here. All right. I'd like you to do two things. Lesson plan 1 is due. And I'd also like you to read the first chapter of the Dibbles book. It's by Ken Goodman. And he does a really extensive critical review of Dibbles. Now, know that this is coming from the king of whole language, so he's not going to like anything of this. But but the reason I have you read this, because it is kind of slanted, but the reason I have you read it is because it's a really good introduction to how to crit assessments, the kinds of things you can think about and the ways to look at, what assessments do and what they should be doing. So I have not found a better way to really get at that kind of critical lens toward assessment. So that's what you're learning here. Dibbles has its place. But as Beth warned us earlier today, that it can be used inappropriately. And and he's very conscious of that. So one of the things that hopefully you all will do as you move forward with your reading career is be a part of choosing assessments for your school or district or even your group of, your grade level group. And if that's the case, you'll want to kind of go through this process of deciding what is the lesser evil, because there's no such thing as a perfect assessment, but what are the kinds of things we should be thinking about. So enjoy. He's a fun writer, and I have to say, I think he's still alive. I got the pleasure of watching him fall asleep during a talk by, I want to say it was, who was that? Like Mari Clay, like somebody who is amazing up there. And he's like, the man's like 90. So it was just a thrill, I have to say. So anyway, enough of that. Enjoy Ken Goodman. And have a great week. I hope everybody gets healthy and enjoys their extra hour. Fall back. Adieu. I'll be here for anybody who needs me.
Tanya, I sent you an email last week with some questions about.
Yes. I have been just insane. Okay. Let me pull that up. Wait, I'm blanking on your last name. I'm going to put Watson in. That'll come up. Watson. There it is. All right. I am so sorry about that.
That's okay.
Now, which one was it? Was it the one?
The panic-stricken email about the portfolio evaluation.
Here we go. Okay, I got it. Portfolio. I have a few questions. Here we go. It looks like the link to that information on Canvas has been disabled. Oh, first, let me fix that while I'm staring at you. That has been the bane of my existence lately. All the links are messed up. And I think I figured out what I'm doing. Okay. That's the link, or these links?
Those links.
Okay, that one looks all right. That one's okay. Now, I did go through and fix some of them. All right, try them. They might be okay.
Okay.
I might have already gotten to this one. I might have gotten to it and then didn't talk to you about it. And the answers to the rest of the questions is you are always welcome to consult with me on your ePortfolio, and do not fear. We are, in the 3 classes that you're taking, you are going to encounter every single one of these things, and you have. I know you haven't been in the classroom recently, but you have oodles. You're dripping with experience with kids and reading. You have lots to say about this. So I think as you go on, you're going to get more confident, but don't fear. You can always, I am here. I love talking about this stuff. Please come to me if you have the time.
So I have this class this semester, and then part 2 next semester, and then that's the seminar one in the summer. When would I do this portfolio evaluation?
Probably at the end of the summer.
Okay.
Recommend.
Okay.
And we're going to do a round of e-portfolios this term. So you're going to watch everybody else's, get some idea of it. And then you're going to do another section of it because there's 7 sections. So you'll do another section next term.
Okay.
And then, so you'll have 2 opportunities for feedback by the time you have to do the other 5.
Okay.
And at that point, you'll be like, I got this. I've seen so many of these. I'm done, but yeah, don't worry. Don't worry.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask you, because this always makes me panicky, but you've done my transcript evaluation, and you gave me credit for all these classes, and then after I had the